Our regularly scheduled program will not be seen due to the following special presentation.
September 21st, 1938. One of the most powerful hurricanes ever to hit southern New England strikes without warning. The storm did tremendous damage, with winds gusting over 180 miles an hour and a storm surge that buried Providence under 14 feet of water. More than 600 people lost their lives, and property damage totaled over $4 billion in today's money. Now, local residents who witnessed this terrifying storm share their stories on this special edition of NBC 10 Timelines. Hello, I'm Chief Meteorologist Gary Lay. Welcome to a special edition of NBC 10 Timelines. Because of the historic importance of what occurred, we are going to devote our entire program to this one topic. And we are going to rely exclusively on newsreels and eyewitness accounts to describe the events surrounding this legendary storm. NBC 10 conducted extensive interviews with people who lived through this terrible catastrophe. Here, in their own words, is the story of the great New England hurricane of 1938.
It was a day where everything was very still and everything looked a little grayish green, the sky, everything. There was sort of a lull, and that's when the hurricane hit.
Of all the signals of the sea, none turned the faces of hardy sailors more grim than the flags that spell hurricane warning. One morning late in September 1938, the dread signals swung aloft along the Florida coast. Up from the West Indies, cradle of hurricanes, moved the Terror, a pit of low atmospheric pressure into which the air rushed from all directions to form a whirling, shrieking vortex.
There was no warning. We didn't know it was coming. The wind just started to blow.
The teachers were saying, "What's happening out there?" I said, "I don't know, but it's gotten very, very windy."
I think we heard that a storm was coming, but we're New Englanders. A storm is a storm. It's just a lot of wind and rain.
No, we had a radio and it just went blank. We had no warning whatsoever.
And all of a sudden, the wind started to come up, and I could see my mother running down the street after a box. She's running down the street after, and we're laughing because we thought it was funny. I never knew my mother could run that fast.
When I was driving home across the Washington Bridge, I had a little Ford Roadster, and the down there blew the top off. So that's when I knew there was something wrong.
I looked up to the sky and I thought, this is it. This is the end.
Oh, I believe I had to stay after school, and I came up Broadway to get a newspaper, and the wind was blowing and trees were falling, and I ran home.
Somebody had sent for a barometer for a gift for their husband, and it arrived that morning, and he opened it, tapped it, and it dropped down and said hurricane, and he said, "This damn thing doesn't work."
I didn't know what to expect, so you didn't fear what you didn't know. So we didn't know how grave it was.
I was scared until my grandmother was taking care of me at the time. And she put me in a room whereas we had 2 doors leading into this room and 2 walls. So it was closed like a closed elevator. And we sat there and prayed.
I could see the storm getting worse and worse. And the shingles were blowing off the homes. And nobody thought nothing of it. And I was saying, oh my goodness, we're getting a bad storm.
When I saw one of my neighbors walking and the wind picked him up off the ground, and then I knew it was powerful. And I saw trees coming down, never saw that before.
It was kind of frightening because you didn't know what was happening. You know, nobody, we didn't have the news like we have today to know what was going on and everything, you know.
September 21st in mid-afternoon, this tropical terror struck, swept over outer Long Island, swept into thickly settled, highly developed New England, struck with winds roaring 100, 150, almost 200 miles an hour. Tidal waves 30 to 40 feet high struck a section unprepared.
Now, my mother had never seen a storm like this. Of course, none of us had, you know. She came down on Thames Street to pick me up. And she said, Marcel, you better come home right now because I think it's the end of the world.
The hurricane of 1938 had arrived, but the full fury of this incredible storm remained to be seen. We'll find out what that was like in just a moment. Please join us when we return.
Moving up the coast at nearly a mile a minute and packing sustained winds of over 100 miles per hour, the hurricane of 1938 caught most southern New Englanders completely by surprise. Hello everyone, I'm R.J. Heim. Welcome back to a special edition of NBC 10 Timelines. You know, it's difficult to believe that a storm as powerful as the hurricane of 1938 could catch the entire population off guard. But you know, these were the days before weather satellites or televised weather updates. Accurate long-range forecasting, that was still years away. In this next segment, we'll see how local residents responded to the terrible fury of this devastating hurricane.
I was living on the 3rd floor. We had just got married. We piled our furniture against the inside wall of the house because we thought the house was coming down.
We had 37 cows in the barn. My father and the hired man went out and let the cows out to the pasture. Good thing the roof came down about 20 minutes after.
And the pig, it was being blown around, you know, the house for the pig and everything. And my dad was out there trying to hold things down.
There was a hen coop that was about 20 feet long, and the chickens were in the coop, and the coop was picked right up and carried across Tremont Street onto the other farm. Not one chicken was killed, not an egg was broken.
Well, you see, we were looking because the rain was coming, so, and the wind was bad. We could see the rats coming up the like on the walls. I didn't like that.
It was terrible. It was just a nightmare. Just a nightmare. It was really a disaster. And if you want to use that word, that is the time to use that word, a disaster.
Well, during the storm, the wind was howling. It was like a train going through the house.
But the little pebbles were being blown by a wind at least 150 miles an hour, and they were like BBs. They were breaking all the windows, and if you get hit with them, you get stung.
Our chimney fell off. And as it fell down, my brother-in-law came in the yard just missed the chimney. He would have gotten killed.
The tidal wave came, and on the tidal wave was a huge white boat, and it smashed right into up over the wharf and smashed into J.K. O'Connell's that was there.
A lot of people hadn't left their summer homes, and they lost their lives because of the tidal wave coming in.
The people that lived next door to us at the beach, the lady was in Providence. She was in her vehicle, and a wall collapsed and killed her right in her vehicle.
Shallow Bakery, he lost his wife and child. The baby was only about a month old, both mother and child, and house swept off to out in the ocean. It was really, really, really treacherous.
This one girl walks around the building and a sign falls on her head and the girl gets killed instantly. This girl was to be married on that Saturday and she got buried in her wedding dress.
The trouble was there were people who did not realize how bad it was. And I know for a fact there was 2 women that went around the Ocean Drive and they were lost because the tidal wave hit.
I'm going to tell you, it was very scary.
We didn't know what was going on. We just saw this powerful wind coming, and then all of a sudden a tree would go down, and we'd watch that, and it was fascinating, you know, for us kids.
The only way for me to get home is to walk. So I start to head for the city, trying to dodge the electric wires. And my mother was so happy to see me. She says, one at a time, we're all coming back home.
We were coming home from Worcester, and I remember some of the roofs were flying off the houses. But thank God we didn't get hurt. We were home safe and sound.
We came home, there was no lights, and my father had one of those old-fashioned lanterns, and he was waiting for me there.
The storm had hit our area at full force, but few people realized how extensive the damage was across southern New England. In a moment, we'll learn how residents coped in the aftermath of one of the deadliest hurricanes in local history. Please join us when we return.
The toll taken by the hurricane of 1938 was staggering. 600 people killed and thousands injured. Marinas, yacht clubs, and thousands of boats were ruined, and nearly 25,000 buildings and homes were damaged or destroyed. Hello, I'm John Giorsi. This special edition of NBC 10 Timelines continues with a look at the aftermath of one of the most devastating hurricanes to hit this area. The day after the hurricane, people were confronted with the world turned upside down. They struggled to clear roads, repair their homes, and search for loved ones who are missing or dead. Our story continues with eyewitness accounts from folks who personally experienced this frightening storm.
The day after, it was interesting. The air was so clear. We went to go along Washington Street to look and see what was damaged and so forth. And the air was just beautiful.
Next morning, we went down, and people that had been trying to drive past the pond had been caught with that tidal wave, and they were in the car, dead. Still had their hands on the steering wheel. There were several cars. Very frightening.
I was in the Boy Scouts, and the day after we went down to the bottom of the beach hill and sort of was supposed to keep the people back because there were 2 cars that had gone into the big pond. One had a woman and one had a priest.
we had to wait for the militia to get in like 3 days later. My grandmother sent my uncle down and asked if he'd check, see if we had any broken windows. And when he come back, he called me aside. He said, "I'm scared to death to tell her the house is gone. It's missing. There's no house. It's just an empty lot."
There was no summer home. It was gone. It was just gone. All in water. Everything was demolished.
There was a big lumber company at Fields Point. The water flooded and carried all the lumber all over the Providence harbor. You could almost build a house. They were picking it up and building shacks with the lumber that they picked up from that lumber yard.
The water had come up right up until my mother's cellar was full of water. And the big oyster shanty boat that used to bring oysters in every day was going up and down Gano Street.
And all the damage downtown was unbelievable. Everything seemed to be all messed up. And when I looked at it, I said, "Please take me home. Don't let me stay here any longer," because I couldn't stand to see. I was weak anyway. When I got home, the inside of my house was everything was all thrown around from the wind, mostly, I guess, and the furniture was all messed up, and the windows in the front of the house, plus the windows in the back, were all broken. Everything was broken.
People got caught without no bread, without no milk, and the people that had freezers, they got caught with all that stuff that just melted away.
I was walking down Thames Street, and a big stalk of bananas was floating by. And of course, I picked them up and brought them home, you know. And when I brought it, my mother said, "What do you got there?" And I said, "I found these. They were floating in the, take those disease things out."
After the hurricane, we had so many people that were sick from the pollution, and a lot of people got sick, including me.
People seemed to help each other, believe it or not. There was no greedy people around. There was really nobody stealing anything that I noticed. And they were helping each other. And they came out to make sure that you had enough to eat, made sure that you were fine, that you weren't injured, and they helped with the problem.
Oh, everybody in Rhode Island was helpful. Everybody that could help. Red Cross, nurses, doctors, everybody that could help.
It was cold. People were miserable and wet and scared. And I happened to have quite a few cans of Campbell's soup. So I got the soup going, and as they came up, we would give them a cup of soup.
In addition to the physical damage to our region, the hurricane of 1938 left lasting emotional scars on those who survived the storm. Join us when we return for a final look at the long-term impact of this historic catastrophe.
Hello, I'm Art Lake. Welcome back to NBC 10 Timelines. For southern New Englanders who survived the hurricane of 1938, no weather forecast that predicts a tropical disturbance heading our way can ever be taken lightly. That powerful storm didn't just change the skyline or our coastline, it forever changed people's lives.
Cutting a wide pathway of ruin inward from the sea, the storm piled up property damage in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The quiet dignity of colonial meeting houses was reduced to broken lumber. In one brief hour, part of the ancient beauty that was New England's heritage vanished forever.
That was September 21st, 1938. Never forget it.
We weren't prepared. Lucky we had a couple of candles. I always make sure I have a couple of candles now.
I worried like this last one we had now. Oh, I was with my rosary. Oh yes, I worried terribly. I say prayers for everybody.
No, we know what's coming now. There's no fear. There couldn't be anyone worse than the one we had in '38.
It was very, very frightening. It really was, and it's always stayed with me.
My experience was very vivid, and I can picture it, I can still see it. It was just before the storm hit. She was a customer of mine. She was waiting for a bus, and I never saw her since. And because I don't know her last name, I don't know whether she was a victim or not. But that woman, I never forget her face.
We want to thank the many residents of southern New England who took the time to sit down and talk with us about the great hurricane of 1938. And we want to thank our viewers for joining us for this special edition of NBC 10 Timelines. If you have any questions or comments about this program, you can contact us on the World Wide Web by emailing us at timelines@turn10.com. I'm Art Lake, inviting you to join us again next time for another edition of NBC 10 Timelines.